I'm so excited. Welcome to Sports and Shopping. I'm so happy that you guys are here with us. Doug and I appreciate you guys so much. You have no idea. All of our followers and all of our fans, we thank you so much. So excited. We thank you. And I just want you to know that it's all so good. It's all so good. But today we're really honored because we have Darren with us, who's going to tell us something very special. He's like a miraculous positive thing that's occurred, and he'll tell you his story. But anyways, Doug, say hi to everybody.
Hello there. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. So Doug and I were in Las Vegas doing our podcast live, and it's so fun. We haven't published the podcast yet because I have to edit and do all that kind of good stuff with our team. But the point is that Doug and I have some really cool people that we met in Las Vegas, and you guys will see it this week. But in the meantime, Darren is here with us, and we're just super excited. So Darren, welcome.
Very glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So you've had like a bunch of amazing experiences in your life, and you've done incredible things, but just tell our audience about the things that you've done.
Well, thank you. It's all relative, right? I mean, you two have very impressive life resumes as well. I got the fortunate opportunity to chase the one thing I was sure about when I was in my high school years, and that was to become a pro racquetball player. I had kind of an inauspicious start, to say the least. The first tournament that I played in was a pro event. It just happened to be here in Tempe, Arizona, but I played in the lowest amateur division that was offered. It's called novice for a reason. And I had never played indoor racquetball before. I had always played outdoor, which has no back wall and no ceiling. So I thought, well, I'll just figure it out as I go, right? Well, that didn't work very well. So long story short, in the first hour of the first day of the event, I lost 15-1, 15-0 to another person who was a beginner at the game, right? I'm sitting on the bleachers afterwards, watching the pros warm up to get ready to play. And the tournament director comes over and says, "Hey, I had somebody drop out in your division. Do you want to play again?" I'm like, "Yeah, that would be great. Certainly I'll do better next time." No, I lost just as badly the second time. But an hour later, I'm sitting on the bleachers watching the pros play. And just to bring the story in full circle, Doug, it was Dan Obremski, who was from Pittsburgh, was the pro that I was watching play. And he shows up with this cool warm up outfit, long blonde hair. He's diving all over the place on the wood floor. I was so amazed at the athleticism that he and the other pros were displaying. Despite what just happened to me an hour ago, I decided I'm going to be one of those guys. And so that put me on a 10-year journey of nonstop work and refinement to get to that level. And I turned pro, and I did make it to be in the top 20 in the world for about 3 of the 6 years that I played professionally.
That's so incredible. That's like Doug being in the NFL. You were a pro.
Obviously pro racquetball is one of the questions I get most often is, "Oh, I didn't know there was a pro racquetball tour. Tell me about it." Right. It's certainly not on the same level of sports that the NFL is. And very few things are, but we were tennis's ugly cousin, right? The way I describe it is that we, unlike tennis players who played in front of tens of thousands of fans for millions of dollars, we played in front of tens of fans for hundreds of dollars. Right? That was the reality of pro racquetball. And it peaked in the probably mid 80s when it was at its really true highest point. And I got started after that. And it's been, unfortunately, a slow downward spiral of the sport. The health club scenarios have changed, right? Racquetball courts are a lot of expensive real estate inside of a health club. And so the number of courts has been reduced. It was never really designed to be on TV in terms of the way that most racquetball courts were constructed. So not being able to televise it very effectively really held the sport back, and definitely just kind of kept it an also ran type of professional sport. But I couldn't have started anything else at age 16 and probably have gotten to that same level if it had been, like tennis or another major sport.
Oh, that's so cool, though. Doug has a good racquetball story.
Lots of people do. Tell me what happened to you, Doug.
Well, that story. I had played. I was a novice, and I was playing with another professional football player. Now we all have some athletic skills. The problem is that when you bring football into it, as you know, Darren, that's a very attacking, aggressive sport. And I translated that. I was a safety. I led the team in tackles a couple of years with the Bears. I was aggressive. I was always going after the ball, going after somebody standing in front of me.
Sure.
And many times I ran over this other person trying to get to the ball. Well, he was a linebacker, so he was able to go ahead and reciprocate. And all of a sudden, I'm getting banged up against walls, and I know he's behind me, and he's going to wipe me out because I'm not even going to get to the ball. He's going to hit me first in the back of the head or whatever with the racket. And this one game involved probably about 60 stitches between him and I. And a lot of bruises, and we both made a decision that day that was going to be the last racquetball game. I mean, you think football would be no football. You got no helmet. This game, you got no helmet on. You got no shoulder pads. It's you and the wall and somebody else. And this was a horrific, event for me. I just felt like I don't know how I could play this more than a couple days because I'm going to have so many injuries.
Yeah.
Concussions and lacerations on my face. I just said, you know what? I always respected the guys that did that because I knew that they spent hours and hours. Those shots they made, they weren't lucky shots. These were guys that were so well trained and disciplined and accurate in hitting the ball. And then also having the athleticism of just continuing games. There's no clock on these things. It's like you start and you got to finish.
Yeah.
And, wow, it was a really, really challenging event. So, I felt like the demise of the sport. Same thing. Football is a great game on TV. That game wasn't, and consequently, not that it wasn't a great athletic event for the players and people watching. It just did not parlay onto television, and consequently, I think it just lost its notoriety.
It did.
Well, I got to tell you guys. So my only racquetball story that I have is my father. My father used to always say to me in the morning when I was growing up, "I'm going to exercise," and I'm like, "What do you do for exercise?" And he was like, "I play racquetball." And my father would go and play racquetball. And so one day I asked him, I'm like, "Can I go with you to see?" And I watched him run. And he was probably in his 40s at that point, but it was incredible. And I was like, I don't ever want to be in that square because that ball's going to hit me. That ball's going to hit me in the face.
Yeah. Well, as with anything, as you get better, the odds of that go down, right? Like the only time the pros ever hit each other, it's on purpose, right? Because you're crowding the other guy or you cheated him and that was a retaliation. The stuff you guys are describing definitely is more common at the lower ability levels. And the higher you go, the less that happens.
Yeah, Doug and I are definitely at the lower ability levels for racquetball.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say congratulations, because it's an honor to be a world champion in the racquetball. I mean, seriously, even though it might not be like the NFL, it's a true accomplishment, right, Doug? It's a true accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, every sport. I mean, you want to get humble. Play a sport you're not familiar with. Football, because in some golf outings, along with other professional players, golfers, and you don't realize how you may be a professional in one area, but you are an amateur. You're a buffoon in another. You're a moron. Trying to play golf as an NFL player is a joke. I mean, it's the muscles that you try to create, bench presses and leg press, has nothing to do with golf.
Nope.
And it just hitting the ball to me was a big deal. Just making sure it went straight down. Didn't matter how far it was. But I'll never forget the first time I went to one of these tournaments, and there was a lot of other NFL players there also. And we had a caddy that caddied for our group, caddied for me. And at the end of my 18 holes, when I finished putting the ball in the last 18th hole, he asked me, would I ever think about giving my clubs away? I'm serious. You know what? These were not the greatest clubs. And I never told this story very much. I gave these clubs to this kid. And he was a young kid. And I'm thinking, hey, he's going to remember this the rest of his life. I am going to try to forget it.
Yes.
Even though was given the clubs by a golfing company just to do a promotion for them. I
Yeah.
had zero investment in the golf clubs. You know what? Make somebody's life. You know, I gave these clubs, they were well-known clubs. I'm not going to say what they are, but he was like crying. He was almost in tears. And I said, man, Doug, you did something good today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I definitely learned a lot of life skills, as I'm sure you guys have in your own past, through the game of racquetball, right? I mean, it was the most formative thing that I've done throughout my life, being in a competitive environment and not being in a team sport where I had to motivate myself. I had to do all the work, in the shadows with nobody watching kind of stuff, has been unbelievably beneficial to all of the other things that I've ever undertaken. So that's one of my biggest takeaways from the sport for sure. Didn't get a lot of money, didn't have a ton of notoriety, but the personal development side of it was priceless for sure.
Well, that's just like with me, with Mrs. Texas, same thing. The things that I gained, the competitive spirit, the discipline. I didn't make a bunch of money, but you know what? It gave me tons of friendships of professional women, and it gave me discipline to stay the way that I was after having 3 children in 3 years. and so the bottom line is that, I get that. And sometimes that's more important than anything, but it's led you to speaking on the road now, and it's led you to your app, which is so incredible. And that's how, that's the journey of life. Everything leads you to the next thing.
Yes. So thank you. So I after my pro racquetball career, I was the coach of the Arizona State University racquetball team for 15 years. And it was the most personally rewarding thing I had ever done. I loved contributing to others. And I learned really early on that I was teaching life skills disguised as racquetball lessons. And so I approached it pretty much from day one with that mindset. And then after stepping aside from that, after a 15-year run, I really
so really quick. Again, you got to give yourself a little bit of credit, Darren. You would not have been the ASU coach if you weren't a rock star in racquetball.
It certainly helped, and it was one of those things where I had a guy that was at ASU who was a really good local player who I competed against locally, invited me to come down and said, "Hey, we don't really have a coach. We just have a club and a guy that runs the club, but nobody really teaches the other players." And he said, I'm not, he had kind of a quirky style. He's like, "I'm not the right guy to be teaching people. Would you come down and do a 1-hour clinic with the team sometime?" I'm like, 60 minutes? Sure, I can do that. No problem. Well, that turned into 3 hours a night, 2 nights a week for 15 years. But I loved it. It was, again, one of the most personally rewarding things I've ever done. I still have some great relationships with a bunch of the kids that were there. And I learned a lot about myself and about being a coach instead of a player, and making the segue into doing public speaking. I wanted to do that same thing on a much, much larger level. Now, I know it's not the same. When I spend 4 years with somebody from a freshman to a senior, you get very, very close. You learn a lot about them, and you have a ton of opportunity for input. Obviously, public speaking is typically a one-time thing, and you try to have an impact, try to get somebody's attention with something. And I was searching for a way to follow that up. And as you mentioned, that's where the phone app comes in. So I found a phone app service online that allowed me to build an app without having the usual $10,000 or $15,000 investment up front. And so it's launching as of December 1st, and it's called Chatterbox. And it is a continuation of the things that I talk about in my talks at high schools and colleges, and also in the corporate world. So it's mindset. It's for the college kids. It's writing resumes and getting ready for interviews, things like that. Some basic personal finance things, some motivational things. It's just a little bit of all of the areas that I've had personal interest, and now being 52, have a fair amount of experience in. I'm just trying to compile it into one place as an easy resource for kids who need some level of expertise in several different topics.
So this is for your wife. Why did you call it Chatterbox?
So Doug and I are very similar in this aspect. The brand is called Darren Chatter, and Chatterbox was the perfect name because I love to hear myself talk, right? That's one of the charms of public speaking, is that I have a captive audience for 45 minutes or so, and they're listening to me talk, right? And so I do sales for my day job, and I pride myself on being a good listener, but certainly given the opportunity to take the stage and talk, I'm all over it.
I love it. Doug, maybe you need to have the Doug chatter.
Honestly, I'm so impressed. A lot of the things that you've walked through. I mean, it sounds like you and I have lived a life in different places of the country. It's funny to end up here in Arizona.
Yep.
With yourself, and but one of the things that I really gave me great appreciation for the sports that I had played is when my career was done, much like yours. I coached for over 10 years with the NFL, in the NFL at Ohio State. I coached in the Arena League with Danny White, former quarterback at, the Cowboys and at Arizona State. I had all these unbelievable life experiences that were so different than playing, but they were just as valuable because you were helping somebody else get to where they wanted to go. And you could draw on all these great experiences you had your entire life and present them, not just in a book fashion, but with some emotion behind it. Man, there's many times talking to players, I had tears in my face, in my eyes, because it touched me that much. And to be able to tell somebody about that and not make that same mistake was invaluable.
Yeah. I have so many stories like that. And one that still gets me, I have a girl that I'm still very close with that in her senior year had a shot at being a collegiate All-American. And that was one of the goals that she had joining the club very early on. And so at some point during the tournament, I still don't know when, she broke her left wrist. She's right-handed, but she broke her left wrist, and she never told me because she was afraid I was going to make her quit. So as she's getting ready for her semifinal match, which if she wins this, she makes it to collegiate All-American status. As I walk up to her, she kind of tucks her arm behind her back. I'm like, what's wrong with your hand? She's like, nothing, it's fine. I'm like, let me see your hand. And she shows it, and I can see the lump in her wrist where it's clearly at least displaced, if not broken. And she's like, please don't make me quit. I'm so close. I'm like, all right, when did this, and you know what, never mind. Let's solve the problem. Let's stay focused on the task at hand. So I borrowed a wrist wrap from somebody, and I strapped it on her as tight as we could get it without turning her fingers blue. And she went in, and she lost the first game 15-14. And I'm walking down the hallway with her to, and I'm trying to think of something to say. And we get to the end of the hall. We're away from everybody. I hand her water bottle, and she's like, I got it, coach. I got it.
Sounds like
that makes you want to cry.
And so I'm like, okay. We turn around and walk back, and she won 15-5, 15-3, and made it collegiate All-American. And she,
those are the stories that make life amazing.
Oh my! I've got chills, and as you can see, I'm getting tears in my eyes. Just
makes me cry just thinking about it. 8
years ago, right? And it could. It's so vivid in my mind. It could have happened yesterday. And that's one of 100 stories like that. And both you guys can share things like that from your past too. That's what makes it so valuable. I was a volunteer coach. I never made a dime, but I am rich beyond belief from that experience.
That's how life works. When you help people and you do the right thing, you're blessed like 10 times over, or not even 100 times over. That's how life works. So I'm going to ask you this a couple of times. So when your app comes out in December, where do they find your app?
So it'll be in the iPhone and the Google Play app stores, and it's called Chatterbox. So all you have to do is download it. There's a fair amount of content that is there for free, so you can kind of get a taste for it and see if it's something that you think would be valuable. And if it is, then there's a very small subscription fee of $5.99, and that allows you access to everything that I'm putting into it. And it will be an ongoing project. So it'll start out December 1 with a lot of info in it, but I will continue to write and add my own material, as well as aggregate material from all different parts of the earth that I think are along the same mindset and of value to add into it. So it's not just my thoughts and opinions on things. it's a collective database for people to reference when they need it.
Sounds like a good Christmas gift for my 17-year-old, 18-year-old, and 19-year-old.
Perfect. I'll put you down for 3 subscriptions.
Yeah, no, seriously. So Doug, just so you know, I don't know if you heard him, but he's in Tempe, Doug. He's by Rocco.
I know. I'm listening, going, oh my gosh, we are not thousands of miles. We are
Right.
like
You guys are like 20 minutes away.
Seriously, yeah. I'm in Chandler. I'm 15 minutes south of ASU.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
When I first came out here, like I said, I knew Danny White, and
Yep.
and I knew some other people here at Arizona State, and I actually did their radio broadcasts and television broadcasts for a couple of years when I first got down here. And you just became even though I went to Ohio State, you become very close with the university. It's here in town.
Yeah.
I have one son who went to Arizona State, and so it's impossible not to cheer, support, do anything you can for that university.
Yep.
And I would really like to help them out as much as I could. And sometimes, you were talking, Darren, about some of the life skills that you need going through sports in life. You only need a couple of those major characteristics. And if you can ride those things all the way to the finish line, you're going to become somebody great in your respective field of study or in the sports world, because, you don't have to know everything about everything. You have to know everything about a very small little defined part of your life. And you do that over and over again, you're going to have a great life.
Yeah. No
Doug,
question.
you know what? I'm just thinking about it while you're talking. We should get you to speak at ASU. Darren, Doug was so kind. He had lunch with my son when he went there as a freshman.
Oh, cool.
He had lunch with my son at one of his locations. And the bottom line is, Doug, we should get you to speak at ASU. You have good things to say.
It's a small world. The athletic director there at Arizona State was he also worked as a academic position in Atlanta with the Atlanta Falcons when I was a coach down there. So I actually met him years before he accepted this position at Arizona State as the athletic director. And it's crazy just what a small world it is. I mean,
well, you should call him and say, I'm Doug Plank and I want to come and speak about sports.
Yes, absolutely. I would highly encourage that.
Right.
I will see what I can do to help with that as well. But that sounds like an excellent plan to me. You should definitely make one phone call and get your foot in the door.
Yeah. I literally knew everybody down there from the press department, their sports directors. It's not that much different. Everybody's wearing a different hat and a different shirt, but underneath it all, we're all the same. I mean, we're all
100%.
We all want to do the same thing. We all want to accomplish the same feats, and we want to do it in a unique way that's good for everybody. But, just as we're talking here, Megan, when you can do this and have success and you bring everybody with you, oh my gosh, tears start running down your face, literally. You don't even know why. You're like in a moment of happiness like you've never had in your life.
Yeah.
And it's the best feeling.
It's the best feeling when you're helping people and getting things done. I agree with you 100%. I agree 100%. All right. So Chatterbox, that's what it's called. Chatterbox.
Yep. Apropos name for sure.
All right. So mid-December, we'll be able to find it.
December 1.
December 1. Okay.
Yep.
So let's give a plug too, because you survived. Let's give a plug for the Mothers of Drug Driving, because you survived a crash, which was obviously a huge blessing. So tell how you helped that organization. Yeah.
So a quick rendition of the story itself. So I was on my way to go fishing in northeastern Arizona. And luckily my dad was already up in Payson waiting on me and not in the car when this crash occurred. So I'm headed on the downside of Mount Ord, which is the tallest mountain between Phoenix and Payson, on Highway 87, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going through a construction zone where there's concrete barriers on either side, and the 2-lane highway is pinched down into 1 lane. And I'm coming around the last curve, and all of a sudden there's headlights coming right at me. And I screamed and hammered on the brakes, and boom. And then everything was just completely silent. And I could hear somebody screaming, oh my God, over and over. And it sounded like it was coming from behind me. And the best explanation I have for that is that the crash knocked my soul into the back seat. And then after a few moments, I had a reconnection where I felt like I was one piece again. And I kind of did a quick inventory check how I didn't get a broken leg from standing on the brakes. I had nowhere to go to evade the oncoming car. And the best I could do was go passenger side to passenger side instead of completely square. And that, I'm sure that had a huge help in lessening the impact. But the windows were blown out. The front tires were blown. I had to crawl out the window, and I grabbed my cell phone on the way out and looked, and there was no cell signal. So I went to check on the other guy, and then I realized there was cars coming down the hill. And so I turned my flashlight app on, and I'm running up the hill trying to get the next car in line to stop, because he's going to come around the curve in the construction zone and not see us until it's too late. So I got the first one to stop, and then the next and the next. And as the cars backed up out of the construction zone, I knew people would see and know to stop. And as I walked back towards the crash site, the first car was a really small vehicle. It was like a Ford Fiesta or something like that. And it had a young couple with two small kids in the back. And I don't know if I took the hit for them, I don't see how their car would have survived that crash. I was lucky. My car's safety features saved my life. I don't know that they could have had the same outcome. So maybe one of those kids is going to grow up and, find a cure for cancer or something like that. Maybe I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But either way, clearly I have been granted more time here on earth walking away from that. And so one of the ways I'm honoring that is to be a volunteer speaker for Mothers Against Drunk Driving events. And so when there's a class that people have to attend for getting a DUI, I'm one of the people that goes and tells this story so that they understand how making that bad decision not only can impact their lives, but have a much wider reaching impact on a lot of other people. And I'm one of the fortunate ones. It was me, and I walked away. There's a few people who share their story that lost a loved one, or someone's in a wheelchair now, things like that. Luckily for me, that was not the case. But either way, I felt compelled to not only contribute, but in some ways it was very cathartic for me to share that story and have that be therapeutic for my own recovery from that scenario. So yeah. I do as much for them as I possibly can.
Yeah, I think that's a healing process when you go through something traumatic, as we all do. Being able to talk about it to somebody and help somebody with your situation, I think it's really a positive thing because it's very cathartic, like you said.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
For me, as you people may have gathered already, talking about something isn't something that I struggle with. So for me, that was the obvious way to deal with it. I never did actually do any true to definition therapy. But I've shared that story a lot. And the first time I went and shared that story in front of an audience, I did my talk. It was about 20 minutes. I ran outside and threw up. For all of the emotion that was tied up in it, I basically relived that experience in front of that audience. But then the next time I went and did it, it wasn't quite as bad. And each time it gets a little bit easier. But I want to have that raw emotion in it, because that's something that when somebody goes home from that class and they say, well, what did you learn? I want them to share at least the feeling of my story and the other person that was there that night sharing their story as the takeaway from the class. If you remember the stats and all that stuff too, that's great. But if you remember the emotion of what we shared with you, hopefully that helps someone make a better decision the next time they're in that situation.
I totally agree. It's, again, a gift from God. Well, Doug had this similar thing with his car windows blown out.
Yeah.
It wasn't a drunk driver, but he decided to roll his car.
You know what though, Megan, listen to this. I still, by the very first accident I had, I was 16 years old. I had just got my license and I went to McDonald's. It wasn't McDonald's. It was another brand, quick service restaurant, hamburger place. And as soon as I get that thing in my hand, the milkshake and the hamburger, you know what? My mind is not on driving a car. It's on eating that sandwich and drinking that milkshake as fast as I can. And I'm driving through the parking lot and I drive right onto a highway where it's a 55 mile per hours, and I drive right in front of somebody, and I get hit on the side of my vehicle right at the driver's door. The next thing I have no more hamburger in my hand. The milkshake is gone, and I am sitting on the other side of the car in the passenger seat, and the car is totally destroyed. And it continued on through a Goodyear tire window and broke all the glass in the front. And you can imagine, you talk about after life. I'm thinking, am I still alive, or am I dead? I really thought I was dead.
Yeah.
And then these people came running up on me, the hamburger, milkshake, everything's all over the place. I'm thinking, what just happened?
Yeah.
And it's a reminder to all of us, you know what? I don't get on phones anymore. I don't eat, combo meals on my way down the road. You know why? I'm too distracted. I want to see everything. So everything in this world that looks interesting, I'm spending time looking at it. Meanwhile, my 3,000 pound vehicle was going down the road, and I'm just saying I'm not a good driver, and I've eliminated a lot of the distractions. I just simply won't ask. I won't answer the phone. I won't eat that double hamburger anymore or drink the milkshake because it might not be my life. It could be somebody else's life that I put in danger.
Yep. Very true. Very true.
Well, Darren, it's been so awesome to talk to you. You're spectacular, absolutely spectacular. And I cannot wait. I'm dead serious. I'm getting Chatterbox for my kids.
Well, thank you very much. This has been awesome. Love to do it again sometimes. I know you guys have lots of people that want to be involved in this, but if there's ever an opportunity that you want to do a 2.0 version, I'd love to do it. And Doug, if there's anything I can help with at ASU specifically, let me know. And Megan, same goes for you. If there's anything I can do, happy to do it for sure.
Darren, let's swap information after we're done here. I would love to keep in touch.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
I'll keep in touch, and I'm going to put all your stuff in our podcast. And next time I'm in Tempe, I'll have coffee with you.
Absolutely. Yes, that would be wonderful.
Sometimes I was in Scottsdale because that's where Doug's at. I was in Scottsdale a couple of weeks ago, but he was not feeling well, and I was only there for 48 hours. So there's sometimes we pass through life, and even though as much as we want to hang out, it just doesn't work.
Yep.
That's why it was really fun to be with Doug in Vegas. Now, so everybody who listens to Sports and Shopping, we're going to have some really cool stuff. Doug and I interviewed some amazing people in the cannabis industry, and the cannabis industry is new for Doug and I, but wow, what an incredible event. And I just want to give a plug for MJ Biz because they were so gracious to have Doug and I do our podcast. And we met some really cool people, and both, I think, I don't want to speak for Doug, but I think we both were kind of blown away about the industry and all of the subsidiary of the industry, software, packaging, like it's just incredible. So it was really fun. And I just want to give a shout out to MJ Biz for allowing us to do our podcast live, and for everybody that interviewed with us, because it was really nice.
Yeah, I look forward to listening to that myself.
Yeah, it was cool. All right. Well, you guys, hey, have a happy Thanksgiving.
You as well. Thank you.
Darren, great meeting you.
You too, Doug. Thanks, Megan. Always.
All right. We'll see you guys soon.
Take care.